Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I'm your host, Brian Karam. With me, it's a pleasure today to have Jim Richards from News Talk 1010 in Toronto. I've been on his show many times. This is the first time he's here, and Jim, I thank you for joining me today.
I got to tell you, Brian has been a big help on our radio station. I think we had you on once to say, "What's Trump doing now?" Then another time to do the topic was, "What's Trump doing now?" And then another time the topic was, "What the heck is Trump doing now?" And of course, "What the hell is Trump doing now?" All great appearances by you, Brian.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here. And the reason why you're here is, I hear all the time. I get out of the country on occasion, and but for those not outside of the country, then there is a belief, especially among those who like Donald Trump, that this is all normal. But outside of the U.S., and that's what I'm going to count on. You guys are sitting north in Toronto. What the
Yeah.
hell does it look like down south to you all?
Well, it's interesting. We had a lame duck, as much of a lame duck prime minister as you could imagine, in Justin Trudeau on the Liberal
Yes.
Party. There was no way you would be able to save that guy. But because the conservative leader, whether he likes it or not, is kind of associated with Donald Trump for kind of his, they call it up here, Brian, mega maple.
Of course.
To describe conservatives that might be Donald Trump associated. So this guy, Pierre Poilievre, was going to be a shoo-in by a mile. There's no chance that he could have not been elected. But then Donald Trump gets elected, and before you know it, nobody turned out to love Justin Trudeau. But before you know it, Mark Carney, former head of the Bank of Canada, and the same job in the UK, which is similar to your Fed, was the new leader of the Liberal Party, and he's a centrist. Trudeau was outflanking our left party. Like he took the Liberal Party, which was more of a center party, he took it far left, and Mark Carney has brought it to the center again. So to answer your question, it turned our whole country upside down. Trump coming after us, and I know might not get a lot of headlines south of the border, but putting tariffs on us when someone had signed what was the best free trade deal in the history of free trade deals. That was Donald Trump, by the way.
Right.
Now all of a sudden didn't like the best deal ever and decided to come after his friends although many people might not say that Mexico is your friend, but they had a free trade deal with Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And so since it has the impression on most Canadians is that Donald Trump has come after our economy by putting taxes on Americans for us sending stuff south of the border. Your biggest trading partner with Mexico tied there. People have kind of been looking down their nose at the United States, even though we recognize it's like half of the population didn't vote for him. With our economic state at hand, we have kind of been looking at, I would say most people have looked at Donald Trump led America, and other people have just, you know, wiped all of the United States with the same brush and said, yeah, we can't go down there and vacation and visit our friends and follow the Blue Jays or the Raptors as we've liked to do. And so a lot of people like to follow the Blue Jays or go down south. We have a term here in Canada called snowbirds, where they go down to Florida or
Right.
California or Arizona. They're not even doing that at the same amount of time. So that was a long answer, but that's about it.
Well, so it's affecting your economy,
Sure. Yeah.
and
It's most definitely affecting our economy. And one of the things is not just the tariffs, it's the uncertainty. It's the fact that Taco can't make up his mind so businesses can adjust to what the new normal is, and such moving target that we do not know. Businesses don't have the certainty to, like, okay, we do want to invest in Canada, or things like that, you know? And then
yeah,
what's really interesting is that our manufacturing sector has gone to the same places that your manufacturing sector has. It's not as if the American manufacturing sector came up to Canada. And like,
Right.
if anybody thinks that, it's like that would be a good reason to attack Canada with tariffs and some of these other trade things that are going on. So, our manufacturing sector has gone to the same places overseas, to China and other places. And so to see uh, Donald Trump take it out on Canada when he had the best deal ever, best trade
Right.
deal ever. It's not like it was Biden deals or Obama's deal. He was the one who decided to rip up free trade and renegotiate it. He did, and now he doesn't like it.
So let's talk about that uncertainty a little bit because that plays a lot in the life here. But people have kind of, I mean, many people adapt to it as this is normal, this is par for the course. But for those of us who've been around a little bit, and us older folks,
Yeah,
it isn't normal, and it's that uncertainty where you can't plan. You can't plan your businesses. You can't plan a vacation. You can't plan family because you're unsure of what's going to happen tomorrow, and on a daily basis, that's got to be probably one of the most frustrating things to deal with south of the border for you.
sure. I mean, when it comes to companies and what we're hearing from executives, it's, you know, can I invest in this new plant? Can I hire this new staff? And for people even who have jobs, they don't know what the tariff uncertainty means for their future. Is Are they in a industry where we're going to run into some problems in the future because our company has decided, you know what, we can't, not that we can't do business in Canada, but we can't set up the same sort of things that we might have in a healthy economy because, again, tariffs are a problem. But the second problem is, how do you run a business when there's not certainty in whatever you're planning to do? And
Right.
it's constant chaos. And so that is one of the biggest factors that, okay, is this the new normal? Wait 2 days and it's not the new normal, right? So if you do think, okay, you know what, we can absorb these costs into whatever we're planning, let's move forward. And then the next day, Doug Ford, the premier of the province of Ontario, which is where I am in Toronto, he decides to run that Reagan ad saying that Reagan was against tariffs. And then Donald Trump has a meltdown, even though one day he said, yeah, I'd do the same thing. It's a good ad. It's a smart move by them. And then he has a meltdown and decides that he's going to cut off trade talks with Canada because Ronald Reagan was quoted accurately.
All
You
right,
know?
let's move on to a different issue. When we talk about Donald Trump, there's also let's talk about Epstein.
Yeah.
How does that play in Canada, the whole Epstein? Because down here, you've got half the people going, look, that was 20 years ago. It doesn't mean anything. You got half the people going, yeah, it means something. You got people in Congress going, uh, we're going to vote to release the information. But the fact of the matter remains that the only reason why Congress is taking action is because Donald Trump didn't release the information and could. So when you look at it up north and you look at that mess, how does it look to you there?
It does look very interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people think of that Donald Trump quote where I could go out on Fifth Avenue in New York and shoot somebody and nobody would care. I'm not sure that that is the truth here, given the perspective of Canada being a Commonwealth country and seeing what the King Charles, did to Prince Andrew. I think a lot of people, and it's funny, we still have in Canada things named after Prince Andrew, and I'm not sure where that stuff is going to land. But I think, like the rest of the world, we're all rubbernecking that and finding out what it is actually going to mean. And it's interesting. We had this conversation around the radio station. We're always measuring, as I think the whole world kind of rubbernecks America and always has kind of taken lead from whatever president is leading a soap opera of, the greatest nation in the world. We're always kind of rubbernecking what's going on. And you can't ignore this one. The Epstein files has been a topic, usually online with people, maybe more in social media than it is leading newscasts, but certainly you can't ignore what is going on right now, and it does make the news cycle.
So, what else? I like how you say rubbernecking. We're basically the porno show for the
Well, it
world.
is, right? Because this Epstein thing has been like there's been no real kind of explosive thing that has real. It's just that dotted line that might get closer to Donald Trump, and so people are at least we're weighing it here as like okay, we'll talk about it when it becomes a story, but some of the minutia we don't necessarily get into on a daily basis unless I'm calling you up going, hey, how is this tracking? What does this actually mean to people? And how close is this going to get to the president? And it sounds like he's always got a clever way to keep it at arm's length now with Pam Bondi and that this investigation. So the documents can't be unsealed.
Right, Pam Bondage, as I call her. That's
Yeah.
but all right. So the peep show factor aside, what you said about news is interesting to me. You all value the news value of it. It's very prurient down here. So every day, and as some have said, if there had been anything that had been actionable, you would think that over the past 15 years or 10 years, over two different administrations, they would have found something or someone to indict other than Ghislaine Maxwell and
Yeah.
Jeff Epstein. So, but we still have it every day. When you look at the news south of you, what's the average Canadian think of how we pursue the news in the United States
In general or just on that topic?
on Trump specific and in general?
Well, I think it's the soap opera that you ever watch a show where maybe you miss a season, but you can turn back in a season later and you still know what's going on because all the players have, maybe the hats have changed a little bit. But I think in general, I think many Canadians have tired of uh, watching maybe a network like CNN prior, maybe in the first administration where it was always breaking news, hair on fire, Donald Trump has done something, and none of it would move the needle, right? So there's been a lot of stuff where people have been, this is the worst, it's going to end things, and nothing has necessarily moved the needle. So I think for a while we would do polling here, like how do people in Canada feel about Donald Trump? And I think for a while it was 70% disapproval. But and so we would not, as hosts in the media, we would not talk about it unless it really meant something to our country, like the tariffs and our economy that has been threatened by some of the decisions that he's made. So in watching American politics from north of the border, it is like who's going to be president, what's going on with major scandals, whether it's Epstein or things that are kind of going to really, kind of rock us up here.
That was so. But one of the things that does affect, and I don't know the coverage that it gets there, but internationally, Donald Trump saying he wants to maybe begin nuclear testing again. Russian boats off the coast of Hawaii. Fights with China. The Ukraine war. The war in Gaza.
Yeah,
And those are international incidents that usually you would trust the United States, or maybe I'm wrong, but you would trust the president of the
yeah,
United States to keep things at least at a calm level. But that doesn't seem to be the case down here. It gets reported both ways. He's the best thing in the world. He's going to get us all in a nuclear war. And those are real issues that
sure.
affect everybody on it. And so how does it appear on that issue in Canada?
We have a huge Ukrainian population, so that dust up in the Oval Office was a huge story here, and it was a really disheartening story for, I think, not just people in Canada, but probably worldwide, on where is the true leadership? Where are we going to find people who are going to stand up to a Vladimir Putin? So I think for the most part, our country has responded by yes, we do need to increase our military spending because we need to, not that we would ever survive a war with America, not that that's even in the cards, but in order to have a voice and say, hey, yeah, you know what, we got to do more for the Ukraine. When we don't have the wherewithal, Canada or even Europe, to do some of the things that America can do, it's a real wake up call for us and our economy. And we've gone from barely contributing 2% of our GDP towards military spending to cranking it up to 5%, which is a huge play for a country of basically the size of California population wise, stretched up across a big piece of land. But you go from seeing that your big brother is going to be protecting you no matter what kind of problems are going to be worldwide, and you see your friends in Ukraine threatened or in other places, and you don't know heads or tails because you don't know what the leader of the free world is going to be doing. So we have decided that we've got to not only make a better contribution to NATO, but we've got to be able to, when Ukraine is saying, "Hey, we need help," and we're like, "Yeah, you do," but we can't do anything about it. We've decided that we've got to be able to put more skin in the game.
Well, that's interesting. Cranking it up to 5%. I don't think the U.S. does that much. I think we're at like 3.5 or 4% of our GDP is for defense. We have a larger economy, of course, so percentage wise,
Sure.
it may be less, but
Yeah.
monetarily, it's a hell of a lot more.
Oh,
Uh,
I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but it is for an economy that is kind of against the ropes. Listen, Canada has decided that business that we've decided, hey, we can't afford to hold our breath and wait for the end of the Trump administration. Canada has decided we need to look outside of what has been our best friend and our trading partner for 100 years, and we have to look to Europe. We have to look to other places. In many cases, we're tied to America in terms of, hey, if China wants us to drop our 100% tariff on electric cars, and that's hurting Canada because China has then decided, oh, you know what? If you're going to do that, which we have to do to be in step with America, but if you're going to do that, Canada, you're punished. And in the prairies in Canada, we have a huge industry when it comes to soybeans. And so right now, the province of Saskatchewan is on the ropes because all of their farmers who produce soybeans can't ship them to China because Canada has to be in step with America, rightfully so, on electric vehicles being imported here because uh, they're they're making them at such a discount to what they're being produced in North America or any other jurisdiction for that matter. So we have to be in lockstep with America on that, but at the same time, when doing that, because of Donald Trump's decisions, we're hurting parts of our economy.
well, that sounds almost like Donald Trump is hurting America more with his policies than Canada. Canada can get away and go with the rest of the world, and of course, becoming a little bit more less dependent on the United States in the process. That to me sounds like Donald Trump has screwed the U.S. more than Canada.
I think maybe over the long run, but these are
Yeah.
things that it turns out. I mean, we just had a budget pass here in Canada, and these are things that they're making such huge investments in places that are supposed to help the economy in like 10 years. It's not going to happen overnight,
Right.
but trying to establish an economy that I don't think will ever be free of our greatest trading partner, but would give us some sort of cushion, right? That we've had all of our eggs in the basket of America in terms of our economy. And it's vice versa too, right? There's
Yeah.
not a trading deficit if you include the oil from Alberta that goes down to the United States that Canada sells at a discount, not at the OPEC price point. So if you included oil, there wouldn't be a trade deficit. But the whole idea of this trade deficit, which I think Donald Trump has started at $100 million, then it got up to $500 million. I think I forget the economist who explained it. Like that's like you having a credit card and going shopping and claiming you have a trade deficit with J.C. Penney, so you're going to get angry at J.C. Penney. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, don't get me started on what makes sense with Donald Trump, but it's very little. But those numbers, that also reminds me of when he says, gas is cheaper, eggs are cheaper. He lowered the price of eggs 1,000%, which,
Yeah.
I mean, so you're paying me to buy eggs now? I think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you got to look at that up north and go, Jesus, what a buffoon.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of the numbers. I mean, anything that he says, I guess, and it's work. So why wouldn't he do it? Where you can say one thing, even though it's not true, and before you know it, it's a talking point for people. And uh, while you shouldn't expect anything that comes out of his mouth to be true, I think that he's built this kind of fortress of being able to get away with it. So
Yeah,
who am I to say that why is it working? Although we do wonder why it's working. But
yeah,
like I say, we have Mega
you,
Maple up here.
you wonder why it's working. I'm just, I walk into the White House and go, how does this even compute? But,
I can't.
but do you, I mean, just to put it bluntly, Canadians, do they think that Donald Trump is a clown?
Um, Yeah, like yeah, I wish I knew the numbers off the top of my head, but I knew first administration number was something like 70% disapproval. So it really put conservatives in this country in a
Pickle.
uh, yeah, in a pickle because for a while people were trying to piggyback off of his first election and what it meant to populism and that kind of stuff. And so you get these people jumping on that bandwagon. Now they have to distance themselves from it. But I would say, to be fair, I think that until Trump came after Canada with tariffs threatening our economy, I would say that the makeup of Canada is quite similar to the United States in that there are as many people who are disenfranchised in Canada as there would be in the United States. And I don't want to say that all people who would vote for Trump are disenfranchised, but I think when you look at a system that isn't working for you any longer, you look for different answers and you hope it's in Donald Trump or somebody who claims that that they can click their fingers and make things better again.
So they say distance gives clarity, right? So Canada is
Yeah.
it has the luxury of clarity. What would you say as a Canadian to an American about Donald Trump to give them what clarity can you offer?
Wow, I would I would give the clarity of here's what I would say. I don't think that any opinions that anybody has around the world is clearly going to get rid of Donald Trump. I always think of the crowd. I vote for him. I voted for him, but I didn't vote for this.
Right.
The clarity that I've always thought would come from within and people who realize that they voted against their own best interest. And I don't know. I see. It seems to me that that is mounting, and I don't know how the midterms are going to turn out. But I would say, listen, America isn't viewed the way it was before, whether it's under the Bushes or Reagan or Trump or Biden, as this beacon to the rest of the world. It's now viewed upon as, hey, who else is willing to step up? Is it going to be the EU? I mean, when people are seriously thinking, and I don't think this will ever happen, but they're seriously thinking, hey, should our biggest trading partner then be China? Like, what has happened in America where people of sound mind are trying to wonder whether or not you can put guardrails up against China and do more business with China without it seeping into the fabric of your government, which it seems to.
Wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
That's I don't know that we look at it that way down here. There are those people who still think that we are the shining beacon on the hill, but I certainly don't. But that's me.
I think I don't want to paint it as all Canadians dislike
No,
Americans. I
I
don't think
understand.
that. Yeah, I don't think that's it. We're just uh, when during the World Series and even actually during the hockey season or the baseball season at the beginning, we had some Canadians who would boo the American national anthem, which I think was a bad look on Canada, but it wasn't about America. It was about Donald
Donald
Trump. And
Trump.
I don't think because, and this is not to blame any Americans, the news cycle in the United States isn't about the country that's, north of the 49th, that is a huge piece of land, but is only the size of California, I say only, it's 40 billion. I don't think that,
Million.
yeah, 40 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right. I don't think that it makes the news cycle enough in the United States to understand why the world might be mad at the United States. And so that's what that was about. When there was booing of the national anthem, it was about Donald Trump coming for our economy, not anything else. And by the way, we like the auto pact has worked for 80 to 100
Right.
years. Where a car that's made in Detroit or anywhere in in southern Ontario, it goes across the border like 5 or 6 times before it goes to market. And so going across the border, if we had reciprocal tariffs, and I still think we do to a certain extent, tariffs, then tariffs again, then tariffs again, then tariffs again, it's not doing anybody any good.
No, especially automakers and consumers. Well, that
Yeah,
pretty much covers everybody.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think of the future of the U.S. Canadian relations? I mean, man, I've been to Canada so many. I've been to Canada. I've been to Canada more than I've been to some states in the Union, and
Yeah,
always
yeah.
enjoyed it from Toronto to Vancouver and all points in between. Do you see us, the two countries, riding this out and being as close as they once were, or do you believe that Canada will find its own path independent of the U.S. to some extent? It can't, of course,
Yeah,
all extents.
I think that we're going to try to do that because
Try
even
to
under
do,
bot, we're,
try,
we're going to try to have a better safety net, right?
yeah,
So that means trying to find other places where, for lack of a better term, to use a stereotype, where else could we ship maple syrup, or where else could we ship our poutine or our wheat from the prairie provinces? And can we bring Alberta's oil to market better with pipelines that would go to either Hudson Bay, which you would be able to bring ships in there, or to British Columbia, Vancouver, or north of there, where you could bring the oil to market? They're looking at doing those things so we don't have to be so dependent on the United States. But to your point about, do we just hold our breath for just over 3 years to when Donald Trump isn't the president any longer, assuming that that would be a Democratic president? There are, I think that there are certain default settings that will not go back to where they were. And I think, and if Donald Trump for America can get a better trade deal than was his first best trade deal ever, and it works for America, there was a lot of protectionism that Joe Biden didn't go back in a race that he
yes,
inherited from Donald Trump that stayed in place. So I think Canada has to keep that in mind, that we are best friends, and we might be having a squabble now. We're going to get over it eventually, but for the sake of Canada's economy, there needs to be more more opportunities out there in the world where we can do the things that we do best and bring them to market in other places other than the United States.
wow, that's freaking
I don't
interesting.
know if you knew this, but in Ontario, the liquor stores are kind of run by the province, meaning they
Right,
get to decide. There's no Kentucky bourbon on the shelves, and there's no
I know.
California Reds on the shelf. So that was a big thing for a long time for many of the people who love to sip their Jack Daniels. There you go, right there. The wild turkey. You can't get that up in
Well,
Canada.
as a Kentucky boy, I'll remind everyone that Jack Daniels is Tennessee piss water, and we don't drink that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. But you can't get
You can't get
your
Jack
good Kentucky
Daniels there
bourbon.
either, I guess. You can't get Jack. You can't get Wild Turkey. You can't get Jim Beam, Woodford
Yeah,
Reserve, or any of that.
none of it. No, none of it. So we got our Canadian whiskey that we have to be satisfied with, which is kind of helped
Oh, all
our
right.
our
You're
whiskey
coming out
producers.
on the
But
poor side of this relationship right now, brother. Let's.
yeah, I know. Yeah, but and those are things that are hopefully going to change, and people have belly ached about that kind of stuff. But I think are willing to take the hit for what would be considered the long haul here.
Well, that's look. I'd love to continue this conversation, and you're coming back. I want to get
All
you
right.
doing. I want to get you doing the Canadian take as much as you get me doing the American take. If
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
up
Sounds
for it.
good.
All
All
right.
right.
What you got to plug, Jim? What do you want to plug?
Just you can listen to our show on the iHeartRadio app. It's a different iHeartRadio app. It's a Canadian iHeartRadio app, which might be a lot of work, but you can find the Jim Richard podcast wherever you find podcasts.
Wherever fine podcasts are sold.
That's
That's
right.
that's,
Yeah,
that's my
exactly.
that's my great FM radio DJ voice. Well, listen, Jim, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Just Ask the Question. We'll catch you next time.